Hello, everybody. Today we have a real treat. We have with us two gentlemen who work on behalf of Northern Kentucky and the Commonwealth of Kentucky in an unbelievable way. So we have with us Senator Robert Stivers and Senator Kris McDaniel. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here, Judge.
So we'll start off with you first, Senator Stivers. You are the Senate President, and you have a lot of responsibility to really move legislation and do so much in the state. But before we get to that, before you ever became a senator, you're a husband, you're a father, you're really an entrepreneur, and you're part of Kentucky. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, I come from Southeast Kentucky, Clay County, Manchester. Wonderful area of the state. I would encourage people to come down and visit because a lot of people don't know what it's really like being in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky. We have some great people. As I always say, we have pimples, scars, and warts, but all communities do. But if you want to see a great part of the state, come down to Southeast. Born and raised down there. My family has been in politics for years. My sisters were in higher education as my mother was. My brother and I are both attorneys. And we have a generational influence on politics going all the way back to my grandfather and great-grandfather, even to Governor Garrett being my fourth great-grandfather. So it's kind of instilled in my blood. I enjoy it and appreciate the fact that I can do something for my hometown and my home area, but also working to make the state better as a whole and being very cognizant of our areas that are growing and that generate a lot of opportunity and have a big impact on our economy. So that's kind of a little bit of my philosophy and a little bit about how I think about things and where I come from.
Thank you for that. And we'll go to Senator McDaniel. You've been in the Senate a little bit less or fewer years than Senator Stivers, but let's for those who don't know your background, again, let's know about yourself a little bit.
Sure. Thanks, Judge. I appreciate you having us on today and for putting this series on. You've had a great number of people from around the community, and that's been wonderful. But yeah, so I'm originally from Taylor Mill, born and raised, and went to Taylor Mill Elementary and Covington Latin, and then to the Citadel for college, 4 years in the Army, back home, got my master's degree at NKU, and own and operate McD Concrete in Erlanger, and raising my family in Ryland Heights, Kentucky. And so got involved in this line of work, honestly, on the political side, helping out Jeff Davis many, many years ago. And one thing led to another, and folks encouraged me to run for the Senate, and I did, and get to come down and serve with wonderful people like President Stivers. And, he doesn't talk about the fact that while he represents a particular region as the president of the Senate, he's got a statewide job, and it's actually a constitutional position beyond his normal job as a state senator. And he's been a huge friend to our region, be it helping with Amazon or the historic preservation tax credits or Angel or NKU. He's really been an integral part in understanding the fact that our region drives the growth in many, many ways for the Commonwealth. And then if we're thriving, the Commonwealth can thrive. And so while he's someone that people up home won't necessarily know or be familiar with at any kind of an in-depth level, his impact to them is very in-depth.
Well said. Well said. And, and I'll go back to you, Senator Stivers. Obviously, the leadership position you hold that Kris is talking about is critical, but maybe you could kind of synopsize that a little bit too. And when you walk in on a given day, you do represent your county and your community, but you've got this other responsibility. Tell us what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, Judge, and I appreciate the compliments of Kris. The role of the Senate President is defined in the Constitution. I'm in the line of succession to the governor. So I'm involved in a lot of official capacities to represent the state. But as a state senator, most people think we look at our districts, but we are state senators. As the Senate President, I do have a mission statewide. So when Kris specifically talks about Northern Kentucky, I'll relate it to Northern Kentucky. But this would be applicable if it is Louisville or Lexington or Bowling Green or Paducah. We have to see what's going on. We have to see what's happening in the educational realms at both K through 12 and higher education, which is significant, knowing that Kris, I think, probably has maybe as many school districts as any state senator in the state because of all the divisions that are there, and you're familiar with that. Also has Northern Kentucky University in the region, and I compliment you, Judge, and the other three judges, because you really take a regional approach, and I wish people would model you more because it doesn't matter if it happens in Boone County, it's going to be impactful on Kenton. If it happens in Kenton, it's going to be impactful on Campbell. So we have to be cognizant of what goes on in those regions because truly you have, and I say you as the judge, you as the region of Northern Kentucky, Kris, along with John Schickel and Will Schroeder and Damon Thayer and the individuals who have Northern Kentucky, you all have a mission that is beyond the geographic designation of Northern Kentucky because you are providing health care well beyond that area through somebody like St. E's. You provide opportunity for transportation with the airport, CVG. You're providing educational opportunities beyond that region at NKU. So you have benefit well beyond that geographic area. And so as a leader in the state, we have to be aware of that, very cognizant of that, and make sure that those entities, along with others, I can give more examples, are healthy, are doing well, because they are drivers of our economy. They are drivers of our tax revenues. So we have to be aware of those dynamics and make sure they're good.
Well said. Well, and I guess before I jump to Senator McDaniel, I would ask you this, Senator Stivers, is, when you look at this, we tout the fact we work as a region in Northern Kentucky, but the other thing, you have to deal with policy that may or may not affect Northern Kentucky sometimes, right? And you've got to present legislation, you've got to support or fight against legislation that may hurt the Commonwealth in the long run. As you've gone from, I think you've been in the Senate since what, 95 or 94, something like that? 97, I'm sorry. Is that, you've gone from a point of really looking at your district to the entire state. How's that changed in the time frame you've been there to see as the state has grown and some policy you can get implemented and others you're still fighting for, right? But how's that changed in the years you've been there?
Well, I'm going to say perspective wise, I think people come in the door thinking that I've got to focus on my district. And I think that's what a lot of new legislators do. But when they get more ingrained and aware of the state as a whole, they see that, this Manchester, Clay County, Barberville, Knox County, let's go to Williamsburg and University of Cumberland. They actually have a facility, I believe it would be in your county, or is it in Boone? It's in Boone.
Mm-hmm.
But you see it as the region. Our state motto is so applicable. We can't do as well as we can do in the Southeast unless you're doing as well as you're doing in the northern part in Northern Kentucky. And likewise, you're not going to be as good as you can be unless Louisville's progressing and Lexington's progressing. And I think as people get more comfortable in their roles, they understand that they grow. And then they understand, and I've heard this comment a couple of times this week, we are not the senator from Clay County. We're not the senator from the 25th district. We're state senators. So we have to think about that. And I think as people get more comfortable, they see that. And I think that's how the growth factor of anybody in the legislature kind of takes place. And that's the biggest difference, I think, from my perspective, that I've seen from my first years here to where I am now.
That's a good point. Senator McDaniel, you're in a position that really is critical to the state, and that's chairman of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee and working on the budget right now. Maybe you could fill us in about the importance of that, how long you've been doing that work, and insight to really the challenges as well as the opportunities for that position.
Right. And I've had the opportunity to do that job for 6 years now. It was previously heading. It doesn't seem like 6 years. He's put up with me for that long at this point. But no, the president put me in that role about 6 years ago, and so I oversee the Senate's version of every tax measure and every expenditure in the Commonwealth. And then along with my House counterpart, we had the committee that negotiates that with the president and the other members of leadership and the speaker and their members of leadership. And so it's a vital role because ultimately we're entrusted to spend around $70 billion of other people's money every 2 years. And this year happens to be unusual because we're doing a task that's never been done in the history of the Commonwealth, which is write a one-year budget. We always write 2-year budgets, but because of the pandemic, we chose to shorten that down because last year, as the time rolled around to pass a budget, we turned to the economic experts and said, what can we expect? And they said, we really need to know from the health experts what to expect. And the health experts didn't know what to expect. So we took the most conservative approach we could, knowing that we didn't want to set expectations too high. And the good news is we've exceeded those expectations in large measure. Senator McConnell and the CARES Act funding that came through and the subsequent packages that have been negotiated have set us up in a very good position. We still are not through this pandemic yet. We probably have a ways to go. So I think that you can expect that you will see an equally conservative product come out just in the event that we have a hiccup on the road to recovery from this. Because once again, we don't want to set people's expectations in such a manner that we can't live up to them based off of the revenue in the general fund. But I think that as folks up home know, things are beginning a return to some degree of normalcy. Now, I'll tell you, it would be nice for us all to be able to sit on bar stools and watch March Madness like we used to, but that's probably, hopefully we'll have a little bit expanded version of that this year. And by next year, when Coach Cal has us back as the #1 seed, we'll be able to do that and the revenues will reflect it. But it is a role of immense responsibility. And, I'm fortunate, first of all, to the 23rd District just to let me come down and represent our region as the state senator, but also to the president and the other members of leadership for letting me take that role on and engage in that task on a regular basis.
Well, it's funny. Everybody's always talked. This isn't funny, but everybody's talked about how smart you've been, Senator Stivers. But I will tell you, maybe one of the most brilliant moves you made was putting Senator McDaniel in that role. So we're very happy with that.
Can I comment on that, Judge?
Sure.
Understand, Kris has defined what his role is, but most people see the A&R chairman as the 6th leadership position. I've been quoted on this, and I think this is a very good way to look at it. The ultimate policy document in the state of Kentucky is the budget. You can have all the economic initiatives you want. You can have all the infrastructure initiatives you want. You can have all the educational initiatives you want. But without the corresponding funding to support them, they're pipe dreams. So that tells you where people are really putting their money. I also want to say this, if you've watched, and you have, Judge, we've actually got a budget process that works the way it's supposed to. Think about our Constitution. It gets out, the governor has 10 days to veto. We have the time to come back and override. Only since Kris has been the chair have we followed that process and gotten the documents out on time, people to review, make technical changes, let governors look at them, let governors veto, let them make their cases, and then come back with either subsequent legislation or veto overrides or acquiescence to the governor's veto. And that's really what I tell people, probably with all the decision making that we make. And the biggest thing is that we have the process, and the process is key, and it makes for better policy.
That alone is something that people just are not going to be, they're just not aware of, right? And to know that process, doing it the right way and doing it with integrity is something that obviously that's something we all want to stand for that in the state of Kentucky. That speaks to both of you as well. So I thank you for both of that.
And one other comment, if I can, on this process. They see our interviews. They see our couple of hours on the Senate floor every day taking votes. But that's probably about 1/5 of the work we do, what you see on the Senate floor, because the other 8 to 10 hours a day, literally 8 to 10 hours a day, are looking at, what is the revenue stream? What is the appropriate expenditure level? Yeah, and think about this: in education, healthcare, infrastructure, local governments, you just go on and on and on. Public protection, it's huge. Economic development. You have those types of discussions on those respective areas every day, and it's huge when you're talking about $70 billion over 2 years.
Yeah, so you're really doing, the work you're doing for your district. You've said this, but I think it's important to repeat it. The work on behalf of the district, the work on behalf of the state. And while you're doing that work, you've taken these leadership roles. Yes, you might assume, oh, wow, it's going to be something you're going to focus on just your district, but neither of you gentlemen do that. I've seen that time and time again where you do the right thing to look at the state as a whole. And I think that needs to be pointed out again. As you work through this process, gentlemen, the opportunities, we could talk about the history of the Senate and the future, but as you look to the future of just what Kentucky needs in your mind, if you had the magic wands to do one or two things to really help the state of Kentucky move forward, what would it be? If I could put you on the spot with that, Kris, I'll let you go first, if you don't mind.
And that's a great question, and Judge, it kind of gets to what I believe is my fundamental view of government, which is we aren't here to guarantee anyone's success or any business's success. We're here to set an environment where people can succeed to the maximum of their God-given capabilities. And that is different for different people. And so the things that we need to do are set a competitive environment that starts, frankly, with our tax code, because the tax code will be the biggest thing to attract individuals and to attract businesses. And so having something that is more fair, more consumption-based rather than production-based, to create that environment. Secondarily, it's making sure that we have a top-tier educational system. Education is the great equalizer for all people. And if people have the opportunity to be educated, then they have the opportunities to succeed. And frankly, businesses want to be in places where you have a well-educated workforce. And so making our tax code more competitive would be number one. Number two would be, and it goes hand in hand, making sure that our educational system is top tier, because that really is absolutely crucial to our long-term success.
Thank you. Senator Stivers?
I'm just going to add on to that, because when you make a competitive tax code, you have a good educational background and system and infrastructure. I always talk about infrastructure. You need intellectual infrastructure as much as you need roads and water and sewer. So I break that down into two components, totally in agreement with Kris. Regulatory environment, we don't want to over-regulate and put people out of business. But then on a subcomponent of educational infrastructure, I think this is what's really good about the group we work with. We're all in agreement. It's not necessarily the traditional, let's go get a college degree, get a master's. We understand that educational infrastructure, and I have two children, and I always bring my background in history, one who has a master's in biomedical engineering, but one who is a master lineman too, and a substation tech too. We need both. And that's both the educational infrastructure we need to make sure is out there and that we're promoting.
Well, it's interesting. Somebody just said this to me yesterday also, and it kind of goes over both points you gentlemen just made, was that Kentucky, we're at the point where we have a right to be aspirational and to expect success out of all of our residents, right? That we want to make sure you have the foundation to give them the support to be successful, but we also want to make sure we celebrate the great things that are going on while challenging everybody to be even better and give them that opportunity, which I think you guys do it on a daily basis. So as we wrap up, I would just ask you one other kind of as a follow-up point. If there was one last thing you wish that the anybody watching this would know about your work in the Senate or know about what you're going to be working on in the coming year or so, what would it be? Do you think that just people would just not be aware of? Senator McDaniel?
Yeah, so Judge, as we wrap up, I want to say thank you for the time first and foremost and for putting this on. But I think the most important thing for people to know about any politician is that at the end of the day, we view the world, we view public policy, and we take our roles and responsibilities through the lenses and the influences of our life. So as I look at children, and my experiences are, kids from first grade to I'm getting ready to send a kid to college, or professionally, my view is through construction and this and that and the other. And the president has children, like he had mentioned, and his other son who serves in the Marine Corps and his background in the law. And so our perspectives are so varied. And you, Judge, coming from the plumbing and heating and cooling background, we bring these perspectives, and we're not perfect. We have a system that's designed to let us be as good as our society can be. But any one of us has plenty of our own imperfections as we come about these things. And that's why the process, once again, of our country and our system of government is so wonderful in what it does. And I think that the biggest thing that I can tell you that I will continue to do is advocate for the region, knowing that it exists inside of the confines of the Commonwealth and the roles that we have. And we will do it with integrity, and we will do it with honesty, and the importance of people being involved in that process, but also having the understanding of our limitations as humans is vitally important. And that's what I'll continue to bring.
That humility goes a long way, doesn't it? Senator Stivers?
Yeah, Judge, I always appreciate the opportunity to get acquainted with people and understand what's going on in the regions. But I'm very much philosophically like Kris. I think people need to know this is hard work. You're making tough decisions. Sometimes they're not easy decisions. And I want to say about most of my Republican colleagues and most of my Democrat colleagues. We all want to get to the same place. It's generally a discussion on how do you get there? And we may have differing opinions on how you get there. And so when I look at this and think about the hard work that both men and women do in the legislative process, they're well-intentioned, they're honorable, they're just sometimes different. And it's because of the backgrounds we come from, what Kris is talking about, coming from construction, coming from education, coming from ag, coming from law. And it's good to have that perspective. Truly is good to have that perspective. I think what you will see, the majority of the people here are hardworking, honest people trying to accomplish the same goal, but just have a little bit different opinions based on either their political philosophies or their backgrounds. And I finish with what Kris says, and do appreciate what you do. When you walk through the door of the Senate or the House, you don't check your life experiences at the door. You bring them with you.
Great point. Well, and I can say this, watching the work that you have both done for a long time, is that we appreciate the work. I know, Senator Stivers, you've always been accessible to Northern Kentucky to listen and to do the right thing and work on behalf of the entire state, really. But we really do appreciate both of the work you do. We know that it's thankless many times, and we do appreciate you trying to really move the state forward, and appreciate the time today, gentlemen.
Thanks, Judge. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You bet.